When it comes to Pokemon, everyone has their own opinions on things, and it is probably the franchise with the widest array of varying opinions amongst its fan base. For instance, tons of people will say they love Charizard and it's their favorite Pokemon, but then tons of people will also say they hate it and think it's super overrated. There are so many wild and crazy opinions out there about the Pokemon games, and so I thought it would be fun to gather some of the wildest, craziest, most controversial Pokemon opinions that I possibly could, and bring them all together in one video to discuss with you guys. I took to Twitter and asked my followers, which by the way, you should follow me there if you haven't yet, what their wildest and craziest Pokemon opinions are. The kind that they don't talk about very much because they're just that crazy. And tons of people gave me a ton of really crazy stuff that I didn't even think was possible to feel a certain way. These opinions are just so crazy, and I'm going to give you guys my take and just discuss them in this video today and show you guys just how crazy and widely opinionated people in the Pokemon fanbase can truly be. Really quick disclaimer before we get started though, I am not here to bash or hate on any of the opinions I'm going to share. I'm definitely all about everyone having the right to their own opinion, and it's okay if we disagree sometimes. I'm just here to discuss these opinions and show you how crazy some of the opinions are that people, including myself, have in the Pokemon fanbase. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, so it's only fair that I start with an opinion of my own, and my wild and crazy Pokemon opinion is that I prefer Pansear to Chimchar, and I do not think that Simisear, Pansear's evolution, is a bad Pokemon at all. The elemental monkeys get a ton of hate, and it seems like Simisear in particular gets singled out almost as one of the worst Pokemon of all time, and I just don't get that. I don't think there's anything bad about it at all, and when it comes to its evolution, Pansear, I just straight up prefer it to Chimchar. When Chimchar was first revealed, I thought it looked kind of weird for a starter Pokemon. I just didn't like it in terms of it being a starter Pokemon, and while I feel a little bit better about it now, I definitely prefer Pansear. I think it's got a lot more going for it with its design. It's got those hands that look like oven mitts because it's a fire type and it's all about cooking, and then it's got the hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil motif with its counterparts, and it's got its hand up to its ear in its artwork, which represents that. So overall, I just prefer Pansear to Chimchar. I just think it's a better Pokemon, and I do not think that Simisear is bad at all. There, I said it. Getting into your opinions now, and speaking of Generation 4, there were several people, not just one, but multiple people who said that they thought that Generation 4 was either the worst generation ever, or that the Gen 4 starters are the worst starters that we've ever got. And to that I say, I didn't know anyone could think that. I thought this one was really crazy that multiple people said this because, in my opinion, the Gen 4 starters, in terms of their final evolutions, are the best starters that we've ever gotten, ever. I think Empoleon, Infernape, and Torterra are all amazing, and like I said, I'm not even really that much of a fan of Chimchar, and by association, I'm not crazy about Infernape, but I have got to give credit where credit is due. The Sinnoh starters are amazing, so it's kind of crazy to me that people don't like them to the point where they say they're the worst, and the same thing with Gen 4 as a whole. I can maybe see why some people might not like it because the original games are kind of slower if you're talking the original Diamond and Pearl, but there are so many things about Sinnoh that are like what everyone loves Pokemon for. It's got evolutions to previous Pokemon, which people love. It's got awesome event Pokemon and actual quests associated with them, which people love. It's got legendary Pokemon, it's got lore, it's got awesome characters. Like, it's pretty much got the whole package in terms of what makes Pokemon awesome, not to mention great music too. So yeah, just really crazy that someone could say Sinnoh was the worst. But then on the flip side of things, this really shows you the duality of Pokemon opinions and why it's kind of awesome that they are so varied, because there were also a bunch of people that said that X and Y and Generation 6 are one of their favorite games, and X and Y and Gen 6 in particular receive a lot of criticism for various different reasons, but I have got to say I'm super happy that people are on my side when it comes to Gen 6, because I totally agree with them. Gen 6 is amazing. As some people shared with me on Twitter, it's got amazing Pokemon. I personally think that Kalos has the best set of Pokemon designs, even to this day, of any generation. The region in general is just awesome. Kalos has such an amazing charm to it, and there are just so many great things about it in general. Not to mention, it also introduced Mega Evolution, which is a fan favorite. So on one side of things, we've got people saying that Gen 4 is their least favorite generation, which is a fan favorite generation, and then you've got people saying that Gen 6 is one of their favorites, which is typically seen as one of the lesser generations. And even though I agree with one side and disagree with the other, I think it's really cool that there is just this amount of variance, because it shows that everything in Pokemon, even if there's some people that hate on it, there are a bunch of people that love it and vice versa, so everything kind of gets the proper amount of love, and I just think that's really cool. Here is another wild one. Gen 2 and their remakes are the worst main series games. The story barely exists, and the level curve is so ridiculous that not even the Kanto post game can save these games from being the weakest for me. This is a crazy opinion, because Heart Gold and Soul Silver are basically universally seen as the best Pokemon games. Even if they're not your favorite, most people can recognize that they're just straight up the best. And this also kinda is personal to me, because I really like Johto. Johto is my favorite region, and I also have just like never understood the whole argument against the Johto games in terms of the level curve. I've always thought that was a really dumb dumb point against Johto, because I don't think it's a problem at all. In my opinion, the game has two regions that you go through. So with Lance being the champion, for instance, and his highest level Pokemon being level 50, which is exactly halfway up of the level scale to level 100, that's exactly where it needs to be, because you're essentially halfway through the game at that point. I mean, Red's strongest Pokemon at the end of the game is level 81. What do you want for it to be at level 100? That technically could happen, but it wouldn't be realistic or good for the games, because you are not able to be stronger than him at that point, and that's the whole point of the game, for you to be stronger and beat him. So I personally have never got that opinion. I've never understood that as a valid criticism, and yeah, I mean, no hate regardless. Definitely you have your right to your opinion. You have your right to your opinion, but it's an interesting opinion for sure, and one that I didn't think could exist. Here's an interesting one. This is probably a bonkers take, but the Gen 5 redesigns of Gen 1 Pokemon, like Roggenrola to Geodude, Trubbish to Grimer, etc., are much better than the originals, even the more unpopular ones like Sock and Throw and even Clink. That is a very interesting take, and I don't know if I can agree or disagree. I would definitely say that I prefer Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee to Sock and Throw, but I think both sides really have something interesting to them. Like, for instance, Roggenrola has way more of a unique, interesting design. There's more to it than Geodude, who's just a rock with a face. But on the flip side, a Pokemon like Magnemite just pulls off what it's doing better than Clink, who attempts to do it but just fails miserably, in my opinion. I kind of personally just don't like in general that they tried to reboot the Kanto decks in Unova, because it kind of defeated the whole purpose of them making a bunch of new Pokemon, and you could only use these new Pokemon in the game, and it was all about new stuff. So if it's all about the new stuff, why are they just trying to make the same Pokemon we've already had in a kind of remixed style? I've never gotten that, but yeah, interesting take. Here is a very controversial one. Leon is a way better champion than Cynthia. Well, I don't feel like this one is my fight because I'm not a Cynthia just lover. I don't really, like, I don't love Cynthia as much as other people do. She's not necessarily my favorite champion. I do really like her a lot. But I do kind of have to agree that Leon is up there amongst the better champions, not only because he's like touted as the strongest trainer, but also personally for me, he actually gave me some fits when I was playing Pokemon Shield when the games first came out for my first playthrough. I played the game, I guess you could say, normally, where I didn't over-level my Pokemon. I kind of just coasted and played the game at the pace it's supposed to be played at without over-leveling my Pokemon in the wild area or anything like that, and his Pokemon actually out-leveled mine, and if I didn't have potions and full restores, he would have beat me. So he was actually a significant challenge in terms of just playing the game at the average person's pace, if you will, and he gained a lot of respect from me for that. So I don't know if I can say he's better than Cynthia, but he's up there for sure. Here is one opinion that I absolutely 1,000 times agree with. I like Finneon. I personally totally agree with this person because I have never understood why Finneon and Lumineon are hated on so much. Everyone says they're so forgettable and they're just a waste of a spot. What is forgettable about them? They're very, very pleasant looking fish Pokemon. Yeah, they're pure water type. Yeah, they only have a 1-stage, 2-stage evolution, so it's not like it's a 3-stage family that gets really strong, but they're very good looking Pokemon. I would rather have Finneon than so many of the other basic fish Pokemon out there, like Goldeen or Basculin, or from a first stage straight up perspective, I would rather have Finneon than Magikarp, not taking Gyarados into the picture. Finneon is awesome, and Lumineon is just an extension of that. There's nothing wrong with these Pokemon. I'm not saying they're the best ever, but they're pretty dang awesome for what they're worth. Here's another one that is up there in terms of the wildness and craziness of it. Sun and Moon's amount of story cutscenes are perfectly fine and does amazingly to tell the game's story, and in plenty of JRPGs, there are also a lot of cutscenes. I will not defend the tutorial cutscenes on the first island, however, plenty of them could have been optional or avoided. I totally agree with this. Everyone hates on Sun and Moon because of the amount of text, and while I will totally agree that the tutorial first part of the game section of that could be completely removed and that was over the top and too much, the rest of the game is perfect. I mean, it has what everyone wants and has been asking for in Pokemon games, which is a bigger, more narrative-driven story. Well, guess what? You can't really have a narrative, more hardcore story without text telling that story, especially in a game that doesn't have voice acting. But even if you had voice acting, you would still have the subtitles, you would still have the cutscenes, so you can't really have one without the other. You've got to have a little bit of text, you got to have some words to be able to tell a story. That's why they call them story books, because there's a bunch of words that you have to read. I seriously don't care about the Battle Frontier, and I don't understand why everyone simps for it. You're being forced to compete in crazy challenges and you can't use your own Pokemon, plus there's no prize money or EXP to earn. Why bother? This is actually something I stated explicitly in my 10 things I hate about Pokemon video, and I just totally agree. I love the fact that there are so many people that love the Battle Frontier, and I love that it introduced a bunch of new characters in the Frontier Brains in the post-game, but what is the freaking point if I can't gain money, gain experience, or in some cases even use my own Pokemon? That defeats the whole purpose of battling, in my opinion, and apparently in this person's opinion. So yeah, I totally agree. The Battle Frontier, even though I love that people love it, it's kind of overrated. And finally, we've got one more opinion to share. Thank you to everyone who shared one. I unfortunately can't go over all of them for the sake of time. I just kind of picked out my favorite ones that I thought would be cool to talk about. And this last one is a good way to round off. This actually comes from one of my editors, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want anyone to attack him for his terrible wrong opinion, but he says Mega Evolution was a bad mechanic. Limited how many Pokemon were viable, pandered to Gen 1 and Gen 3, broke the game, and nobody used them in the campaign. If it's a central mechanic that nobody uses, then it's not a good mechanic. Okay, well, I feel like I can go in a little harder on this one because I know who I'm talking to when I say that this is the worst opinion ever! Oh my gosh! I don't know if there's anyone else out there that feels this way, but I had to talk about this one simply for how shocking it was. It was like the other ones that said the Gen 4 starters were the worst. I genuinely didn't know anyone could feel this way. I definitely disagree that no one used them in the campaign. I personally used Megas all the time in the campaign, and I don't know a single person who didn't. Like, I don't want to, like, invalidate your opinion, but I don't feel like that's true. I feel like most people used at least one Mega Evolution at least at some point in their main adventure. That just seems like a no-brainer. And also, they didn't pander to Gen 1 and Gen 3. I mean, maybe they got more than the other generations, but literally every generation got at least one Mega Evolution, except for Kalos, which was the most recent generation at that time. That is amazing representation for a feature like that. Even if some generations only get one or two, it's just amazing in general that they spread it out that evenly compared to something like regional variants, where we only got the Gen 1 Pokemon for regional variants in Gen 7, and even now with Galarian forms, I don't think we necessarily even have every region represented in that feature. So I don't think it pandered that much, or at least as much as you're suggesting. So yeah, Mr. Editor Person, I don't want to say your name because I don't want people to come attack you for this, but I'm gonna have to disagree. I think Mega Evolution is good. I can sort of agree with you on the viability mechanic. It gave some Pokemon a competitive edge for sure, but I think it's an amazing feature. It definitely needs to come back, and I really hope it does someday. So yeah, there you go. Okay, and that is pretty much gonna wrap it up for this video, but isn't it kind of crazy how so many ridiculous opinions exist in the fan community? Like, whether I agree with them or disagree, I think it's just wild how differently people can feel about certain things, but still be into the series in the same way that we all are. We might feel completely differently about all of this stuff, but we are all pretty much as equally as passionate about this series, even though we feel completely differently about a lot of stuff. And I think that's pretty cool. So be sure to let me know your crazy controversial opinions in the comments below. And if you feel completely differently to me or someone else, that's totally cool, because remember, we all have our right to our opinions, and that's a-okay. That's handy dandy. Definitely be nice to people. Don't attack people in the comments. And yeah, with that said, I will be back very soon with another video. Hopefully you had fun with this one. Thanks for watching. You can also check me out on Spotify to further support the channel. It really helps. But yeah, with that said, thank you very much for watching. I love you guys very much. And until the next one, as always, I'll smell you guys later.